What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro V Pro. It's a day late because Justin was in a U.S. Open local qualifier, got into a playoff, didn't quite make it, but Justin, that had to be a really fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, fourth round of golf of the year. Haven't hardly played at all. It was fun. It's fun to compete. Man, these kids now hit it so far. I think the average age, 7 for 3 playoff. And I think the average age was probably 26. And that's including me. So I brought that, brought that up a lot. There was definitely nobody else over 30. So I was at least 14 years older than everybody. But I birdied the first playoff hole. But there were 2 eagles and a few other birdies. And then the second playoff hole, I hit it right through the fairway and pinned it up against a tree. Kind of tough break, chipped out. I had about a 15-footer for par, and nobody else made a birdie, and it just didn't make it. I hit a really good putt. But, yeah, it was fun. I mean, if you'd have told me I had a chance going in, I would have been pretty pleased. 5 par 5s, and I played them even par. You just can't do that. They're all downwind. They're all reachable with an iron. And, that's pretty much it. I just didn't drive it very good. But
we had a lot of the Discord
it's
following along. So you're breaking up on my end. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, Justin, we were following along in the FTN Discord. So you had a bunch of people rooting you on, and I know it was a damn good effort. So I do want to talk a little bit about Philly cricket before we talk PGA Championship, just because that, of course, obviously very near and dear to me, and I was very disappointed with Thursday how low the scores were. I thought they made a big mistake with the way they set up the pins, knowing that was going to be the easiest conditions of the week. I don't know why they also made it the easiest pins of the week, and it just didn't really give the golf course a chance to defend itself from go. But then Friday through Sunday, I thought was excellent.
Yeah, Rory's comments were interesting about rolling back. If basically that just shows you where the game is. Like, these carries are 310, 315. He's like, yeah, they're 20 yards too short. Everybody's hitting it over them. Like, that's mind-boggling.
There definitely were spots where that was the case. It wasn't true on all the holes, and especially I thought like one of the kind of unlucky things about the event was that a lot of the forced carries ended up downwind, and that's not actually the prevailing wind. So that made it a little bit annoying. And I think that's kind of the major theme for me, is that golf course is going to hold up and test guys in a major way if instead of being played in the first week of May, it's being played in the first week of August, something like that, where then you still run the risk of the wind, but the rough is going to be extremely thick and dangerous. And then I think you'd also more likely have you'd still have a chance for rain, but then the wind would most likely be in the direction that makes the golf course hard.
Yeah, I think, but outside of the scores being lower than we thought, and being disappointed with some of that, overall, it really seemed to me like the players enjoyed the golf course, and they liked the look of the golf course, and they were very happy with the way. There was a lot that they said that they liked about the golf course.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think part of it is the variety of the holes, right? Like you have a 250-yard par 3. You also have a 100-yard par 3. You just don't get that kind of variety a lot around the PGA Tour, and I think that's one of the criticisms of Torrey Pines. I also think it's one of the criticisms of Quail Hollow. But I know you and I both really like Quail Hollow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking about this, and I think this is a good conversation to have. I'm interested in your thoughts, because I definitely have mine. They already play an event there every year. We're now looking at their second major in the last 10 years, plus a President's Cup. Is that overkill?
I'll come at this in 2 ways. As just a pure fan of golf, like I actually wrote about this in my Hot Takes article, which is already out today. I think from like a pure golf fan perspective, I do really enjoy seeing golf courses for the first time, or for the first time in a while, right? Whether it's Pinehurst last year, I think we're going to see that with Oakmont, right? Philly cricket last week. Like, it's fun to learn a new golf course or to get reacclimated with the championship style golf course. And we definitely are missing that when you go to Quail Hollow, since we see Quail Hollow year after year. on the other side, from like a DFS and a betting perspective, it's awesome to have a PGA Championship where we actually have this much data on a golf course. We can use the regular course fit model instead of just an event fit model and actually blend those two together as we've done this week, which we'll, of course, talk about more. But I think like ultimately it comes down to the quality of the golf course. And I do think that Quail Hollow is quite good.
Yeah. The problem is it's the same type of player, I would guess, that wins every year here. And, you know, I prefer a golf course to me in a major. It sure would be nice to a place where, although it didn't happen at Pinehurst, we ended up with two of the longer guys in the final group. I didn't feel like maybe that type of player was going to win. Whereas like this place just gives you that feel of, hey, it's going to be a longer, you know, forced carry type of player just because it's going to be wet as well. And then the greens, luckily they have sub air and the greens are new, so they should be pretty firm, I'm going to guess. And I hope they allow that to happen. I don't like it. I wish they would go to somewhere new. Now, if you want to play there once a decade in a major, right, that's fine. You know, like they deserve that as a club, no problem. But I do think there's too many, as we saw with Philadelphia Cricket Club, too many really good golf courses that nobody knows about that would be willing to have a tour event.
Yeah, I think one of the big like holdups to that is you need a lot of space on the golf course to fit the fans, right? Like, so Philly Cricket, for example, we parked like 3.5 miles away and had to take a 30-minute shuttle ride as fans just to get to the course. There were not anywhere near as many stands or tickets sold as other tournaments because they knew they couldn't fit that many people. So I think like that's a major reason why you see just the same courses getting these big tournaments over and over and over again, because from the tourist perspective, it's not like what is the fans' experience, it's how can we sell as many tickets as possible. And that's unfortunate, but I think it's also just kind of the business of golf.
Yeah, I just like, for instance, Liv already got a hold of Merido here for that event. Man, I'm telling you, you play a U.S. Open or a PGA Championship at that golf course, there could be pure carnage, and there's plenty of room. But I mean, that's just, you know, one example of a place that I know they could make hard, that could hold the event, that has plenty of room, that would be willing. And you know, that's without even really thinking about it, right? That's just one place. So I just hope that they do a better job maybe of moving it around. Now, that being said, I don't mind Quail Hollow. And a lot of times you find these setups for majors different than what they are for the regular event. Yeah. From my understanding, is Quail Hollow all overseed this year with and then the greens, which so now we're going to get soft, easier conditions. I'm not sure if you can get overseed rough long enough to be a penalty.
Yeah, so the overseed rough is interesting because you can get it thick, but the blades of grass themselves are never strong, so they never present like that much resistance. So it's not the same test as Bermuda rough. It's not the same test as fescue rough like we just had at Philly Cricket. Although the Philly Cricket rough wasn't as thick as this is going to be. So I think it'll still be challenging. What we've done for the course fit model, which you can see on screen here now, is this is a blend of the Quail Hollow model and the PGA Championship model. We know that the PGA of America likes to set up these golf courses in similar ways. They want challenging rough. They want challenging rough around the greens. They want the greens as firm as they can get them. And of course, they like long and similar golf courses. So we have about 2 parts Quail Hollow, 1 part PGA Championship in this course fit model, but it looks very similar no matter what you do, because it actually turns out that the Quail Hollow model is very similar to PGA Championships. The biggest similarity is in driving. Both distance and accuracy matter far more than usual in the PGA Championship, and they matter far more than usual at Quail Hollow. Usually, golf courses, there's a trade-off there between distance and accuracy. The more the distance matters, the less that accuracy matters. The more that accuracy matters, the less that distance matters. Quail Hollow is one of the very, very few courses on tour, and both the PGA Championship and US Open are some of the very rare events on tour where both matter more than usual. So we see a massive increase in both. And then the biggest difference between PGA Championships and Quail Hollow is that Quail Hollow really emphasizes around the green play over approach, and PGA Championships have been the opposite. And so Quail Hollow's around the green boost is around 50%. PGA Championships are well below 0%. So we get this 20% boost to around the green, and then a decrease on putting as well. So Justin, what are your thoughts here on any of these boosts? Anything surprise you here?
Well, it's so hard because how many times have we played around the green play where it's off of overseed way easier than that? You normally hear it's kind of grainy Bermuda, a little bit more difficult. So the lower of around the green play, and the reason it's probably pretty low, generally speaking, for PGA Championships is it's usually thicker rough. So everybody's kind of hitting that. We talk about it a lot, like some kind of bunker shot. So I definitely can see how this works. Yeah, I mean, the whole model looks about what I would expect. I'm pretty sure with the redo of the greens, they're big. And so lag putting maybe is going to be a little bit more important, but that might be why putting is down here. Yeah, it's so hard because I just feel like these conditions are so different than what we see both out of Quail Hollow and out of most PGA Championships.
I think the around the green signal is also a product of the driving signal as well, because when you have driving such a major part of the model, it means that if you're not driving it that well, like you're not going to have a chance to hit a ton of greens. You're not going to have a chance to get the ball close. You are going to have to rely on that short game. And then, of course, there's some of that, like just course management signal that we talk about in around the green play as well. The other thing I want to note here is just from having some conversations with some of our subscribers and stuff, I think it's worth talking about what these boosts actually mean. You'll notice previously I've been calling these weights, and we realized that's not actually accurate. They're boosts. And so let's use around the green as the example, 20%. If you take any two players and compare any skill set between the two, there's going to be some talent gap between them. And the way we quantify this talent gap is through strokes per round. So let's say, for example, that Justin and I are playing in the PGA Championship. And let's assume that Justin's short game is half a stroke per round better than mine. It's probably close to what it actually is. But we're talking there about like a generic, hey, this is on average on any golf course, it's about half a stroke better. When you look at the course fit model and you see a 20% boost on around the green play, what we're saying is what is usually a half a stroke advantage through around the green play is 20% higher here. It goes up to a 0.6 stroke advantage. That's what these weights mean, or that's what these boosts mean. So when you see 65% and 52% on distance and accuracy, what we're saying is that small advantages become pretty large advantages. And that means that guys like Bryson, guys like Rory, they are separating so much from a projection standpoint because they're already very impactful and significant advantages off the tee become that much more advantageous for them. So wanted to kind of just give a little bit more of an understanding on what these boosts mean here in the course fit model.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around right now, it sure feels like everybody believes this is Rory's tournament to lose.
Yeah, either Rory or Bryson. I mean, I think Bryson might end up being the most popular bet just because people don't want to bet 4.5, 5 to 1, whatever Rory is. And I've seen numbers as high as like 14 to 16 on Bryson. So I do think people are taking that. And I will say, from a projection standpoint, we have them pretty close. We've got Rory at 1.77 expected strokes gained, Bryson at 1.62. Now, it is a lot harder to project these live guys, and I was very aggressive with my Bryson adjustments, taking his driving up to gaining over half a stroke in both distance and accuracy, slightly longer than Rory, and actually fairly more accurate than Rory in our estimate. Bryson off the tee has just been otherworldly. it's really kind of amazing how accurate he is off the tee. And it's something I've been saying for years. Like, the most impressive thing about his transformation as a player, this was when he was beefing up and becoming long. It wasn't the distance. Like, anybody can work really, really hard and become longer, but to maintain the accuracy, and actually he got more accurate as he got longer, just understanding the swing and the biomechanics of it all. He is incredibly impressive off the tee, hitting a massive amount of fairways. And as we know, you don't actually have to hit a lot of fairways to be accurate when you're as long as he is. You just have to manage your misses well. He's doing both. He's managing his misses really well. He doesn't have many big misses, and he hits the ball right where he wants over and over and over again. It is incredible to watch off the tee.
It's not, I mean, like that. I don't even think that there's a way to describe it, right? Is there a way that you can describe it, how good he drives it to like somebody that, so, there's a lot of people that go out there and let's say you go play golf with somebody, right? And they're going to be like, this dude drives it really good. Like, yeah, they don't understand the difference between that and what Bryson's doing.
Well, so here's some context. Like, we've got Bryson at 1.08 expected strokes gained off the tee total. Rory's at 0.79. Scotty's at 0.77. Oberg is at 0.62. So like that's what really good driving is. 1.08 is kind of insane, is an insane estimate. But let's look at what he's done in the majors. 1.29 at Augusta, where driving is actually a little bit diminished. Then you go back to last year's Open Championship, 1.37 per round. At the US Open, 1.3. Last year's Masters, 1.86. Like, this is just what the guy does. He was at 0.98 in the previous Open Championship, 1.21, 1.79, 1.59, 1.31 going back to the 2022 Open Championship. Those are consecutive. He has gained at least a full stroke per round in every event, in every major except one in that time, and that was the 2023 Open Championship. He gained 0.98. Like, it's unbelievable what this guy's doing off the tee. And again, he's doing it with prodigious distance and mesmerizing accuracy.
Yeah, it's just all around impressive, period. Yeah. Like, there's no really other way to it's almost so good that you expect it to at some point come back to normalize. Like, you keep waiting for it to be like, oh, he just drove it really bad this week.
Well, I mean, 100%. Like, if you add up like the average, or if you take the average of his, strokes gained off the tee, by the way, that also explains why he has been in contention over and over in these major championships, because when you drive the ball that well, it's hard to give that advantage back. And so we know he's become much better on the greens. We know he's a good putter. And the question is often just, do the irons show up? But even when the irons don't, like at the Masters, when you're creating that much of an advantage off the tee and you're solid on and around the greens, it's hard not to be in contention.
It's like I said, like, I just can't wait. Like, it just seems like or at least for me, like, oh, I'm not going to play him this week because it has to come back to normal. Because it's so abnormal what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think like part of the challenge of projecting him is that I don't know how trustworthy the strokes gain data is from LIV. But in his last 4 events, he's gained 2.4, 3.1, and 2.7 strokes per round off the tee on LIV. Those are numbers we don't see on the PGA Tour ever, to the point where I can't imagine they're actually correct. It's also worth noting that, like, that is Data Golf attempting to adjust for the field strength. I think there's a very decent chance that they are not quite adjusting enough for the weakness of those fields, but yeah, it's hard to say because the numbers are insane. I mean, he's gaining like well over 30 yards per drive, and he's also hitting 5 to 15% more fairways than the competition. It's just absurd.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you have anybody else, like, thinking about how much of an advantage of driving? Does anybody else stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, so like, I think this is the biggest challenge of the week, because the entire industry is on distance being the key separator here this week at Quail Hollow and in the PGA Championship. And so if you're saying, all right, I'm just going to play bombers, like you're doing what so much of the rest of the field is doing. So whether you're talking outrights or especially DFS, you're not going to gain an advantage that way. I think what I want to do is lean into the guys who, yeah, they are long, but they also gain a ton from accuracy, or guys who are just all around great players, and especially guys who are great around the green. And so I think the two guys who stand out the most to me are actually live guys. The first is Jon Rahm, only $10,200 on DraftKings. We have him projected at the moment at 5% in single entries. We'll see if that comes up, but if it doesn't, like Rahm before he went to live was on the same level as Scotty and Rory from a driving perspective. He was in between Scotty and Rory lengthwise and was about as accurate as Scotty off the tee. So if we can get that kind of form from Rahm, that's going to be a major differentiator. And I will say, like, well, let me ask you this, Justin. How much do you think it matters that Rahm hasn't been able to win on live and he's just getting, between 4th and 6th place like every single tournament?
Well, so that's a great question, and it's easy. I think we could talk a really long time about this, right? So, I mean, it's not like he's playing bad. He's in contention every single week, right? It's not like on Sunday or whatever their last day is, I guess. He usually has a chance to win.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened. Now, I think at some point it may become mental, but I don't think it's to that point yet. I just think that he's running into guys that are playing better the last day, and golf is really hard, and it just hasn't happened. I think it will really soon. I don't look too much into it, especially for him. It's not like you're getting a guy that doesn't have killer instinct. We all know he does. We know he can win. It's not like he forgot.
Yeah, I think like the argument against Rahm is that the fact that he's been finishing 4th through 6th like almost every single week on live, that becomes a 15th or a 20th place finish when you then get to the Masters. And when you get to a PGA Championship, that might be 25th or 30th. So you need him to play better than he's played on live. But personally, I think that that's well within the range of outcomes. We saw him finish 14th at the Masters. He drove the ball well, but it's a hard golf course to really separate off the tee, so he's got a better chance of separating here at Quail Hollow with his driving skill. He then went to Mexico City and drove it extremely well, significantly better than he did at the Masters. He lost strokes with his irons at the Masters and finished 14th. That doesn't happen very often, so I do think Rahm is set up fairly well here. When Rahm has struggled in the past, like let's go back to his PGA Tour days, when he was struggling to find contention, it was most often either a very cold putter or a bit of a balky short game. And so the fact that those two elements have consistently been there for him and he's driving the ball well this year, I think the path is there for him to be quite good. And if he's anywhere near as low owned as he is, that's who stands out the most to me. And his GPP score is saying it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, 5% Jon Rahm is asinine, period, in a major. Like you just like that's there was a point that like that would be up to Jon Rahm was up to maybe 15% an auto click the first time. You know what I mean? There was a point in his career where if he was going to be under 15%, you were playing him absolutely no matter what.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be something like that just because it's so easy to get Scotty, Rory, or Bryson. And I mean, I even had a shell built just to see if I could do it with Scotty and Rory. And it wasn't that hard because there are 6K and 5K players who are actually like good golfers. And so I think people are going to make a very strong effort to have at least one of the big three. And if you do, you can go to Rahm as the second one, but they're still competing with Schauffele and Morikawa. And Justin Thomas is $300 cheaper than Rahm, and JT is coming off a win, contention a couple other times. Like JT has been awesome. So when people compare Rahm to JT, far more often than not, they're going to go with the guy who's $300 cheaper. It's just so easy for me to see Rahm really slipping through the cracks here.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad you brought up JT. Like, if there was ever a point that he has a really good chance to win, I think this is the week. I mean, he's trending. He was trending into his last win, and he hasn't shown many signs of slowing down.
Yeah,
I think that he's probably as confident as anybody going into this week.
I do, however, think he's being overowned because he's not anywhere near as good off the tee as these other elite players. And so I don't believe that he's a great fit for the golf course. And yet everyone's talking about the fact that JT has a win here at Quail Hollow, so they just assume he's a great fit. JT was driving the ball a lot better at that time in his career than he is now. The saving grace for him, though, is he also probably has the best short game among the elite players, and short game matters a ton at Quail Hollow. So when he doesn't drive the ball well, he can certainly make up for that around the green by saving a lot of key pars.
Yeah, there's one guy that I want to talk about that I know he's kind of we talk about a lot on the show and that you like a lot is Gary Woodland.
Mm-hmm.
Playing better, obviously. I think he finished 5th here in the last couple of years. It might have been longer than that. It might have been 4 or 5 years ago. But he also, I read a stat somewhere that maybe he led the field in strokes gained tee to green here last time out, finished like 15th. Is he projected to be super high owned, or how? What's your thoughts?
No, he's going to be contrarian. I think the biggest issue for me is the short game. Like, even as he's played well here in recent weeks, it has been bad around the greens. Even when he was second at the Houston Open, he lost 0.3 per round. And then he lost 1.2, 0.8, and 0.7 the Texas Open, the RBC Heritage, and the Truist. Those are his last 4 events. He has only gained around the green once since the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am on February 2nd. It's been ugly with his short game. Now, when he's on with the ball striking, he can largely avoid that short game, and then it becomes really good. Then you get the 4 under second round at Philly Cricket that did us quite well in showdowns. The approach play was amazing last week. The only other concern, he also hasn't been very accurate off the tee. So we know the distance is there, but the accuracy off the tee and the around the green play are probably holding me back.
So my point here is I think that he is one of the guys that benefits the most from it being all overseas. Like, I think that the way that he chips, all of that, I think the course conditions help him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do agree with that. What do you think of some of these other really cheap guys with good GPP scores, like Kevin Yu, for example? I think he's a really interesting conversation because he has played awesome golf. He's driving it extremely well. His iron play has been awesome. He's got the event-to-event volatility that we actually really like. And yet I'm having an awful lot of trouble actually. I don't want to use the word trust because trust is not a thing I care about in DFS. I think my biggest issue is that we know that when you get to major championships, number one, it becomes more about your long-term form than your recent form. So that's a point against Kevin Yu. And then the second thing is, like, there's very much an element of, are you emotionally and mentally prepared for performing in a major championship relative to just an average week on tour? And in that regard, I don't know if he's there yet. So what is your thought on Kevin Yu, who has very clearly played good golf? I mean, he's got, five top 10s this season already, or 5 top 20s this season already?
So to your point, which is you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. He is really good. I just worry about him in the situation. I'm not a huge fan of playing a guy in a major that can miss a 3-footer at any given second.
Right.
So, like, and that's all I like with him. That's all I can think about is he literally could miss short ones at any given moment. So I know putting is down, but if the greens end up being firm and fast, you still are going to have a lot of 3 to 5 footers for par.
I mean, like, to me, this is really telling. He has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 events since the American Express on January 19th. He has gained at least half a stroke per round with his irons in every single one of those events except for one, the Masters, and he lost 2 strokes per round with his approach. Now, is that just coincidence that it just so happened to be the Masters that he didn't perform as well with his irons, or was the pressure of a major championship, and particularly the pressure of Augusta, just a little bit too much for him to deal with? Just because he didn't deal with it well then doesn't mean he can't deal with it well now, but certainly I think that's a variable that matters.
Yeah, I do think Augusta is different because you have so many like hanging lies and it's not as flat. So I do think that matters a little bit, but at the same time, like it shouldn't be that much worse, right? If it was a little bit worse, then I would probably disregard, but being that much worse, yeah, I just don't.
That's really, really, really bad. That's I mean, put it this way, if you take all of his other approach results and you then like simulate, okay, how many times would he have to play in order to get a strokes gained approach as bad as -2 or worse per round, it would say it's like well under 1%. So the fact that it happened, it does suggest that there was some effect beyond just the randomness, that he just didn't handle it well at Augusta. And that was one of my big takeaways just from the Masters this year was I do want to pay a little bit more attention to, number one, long-term form over recent form when you get to a major championship, and two, who do we think has it mentally and psychologically? And so like, let's use a counterexample. Let's talk about a cheap player that we do think is there mentally. Andrew Novak, $6,600 to me seems insanely underpriced. Accurate off the tee, outstanding around the greens, and everything that we have seen from him in the last few months tells me that when the pressure gets brightest, he can deliver.
Yeah, I agree. And Novak, I think Novak's on his way to being a more well-known name, a more household name, if you will. So I'm just surprised. We're talking about some people in that $5,000 range of how many good proven players that I don't mind rostering in the like 5,500 to and up range. Like there's guys down there that we know can play. Harry Hall, Adam Hadwin, Johnny Vegas, Valimaki. They're all these guys, Rogers, Greiselman, Hughes. I mean, there's guys down there there's a lot of guys down there that can play that are good. Yeah, Taylor Moore, exactly. Yeah. I mean, Stevens has looked awesome at times this year.
Mackenzie Hughes is playing really good golf as well, and we know he's got the short game, and it's certainly not the driving that we want here at Quail Hollow, but his driver has been better. Like that's, when you look at his recent results, he's got a 10th, a 3rd, and a 2nd, and the biggest change for him has been that he's actually driving the ball well, whereas early in the season he was losing massive amounts of strokes off the tee. So he's definitely figured something out there, which is allowing the rest of his game, which is quite good, to actually be used and gain those strokes. So I don't think Hughes is a bad play down there either. But I'd also say like this wealth of options down here is exactly why we're going to see so much ownership on Scotty, Rory, Bryson, and we're clearly going to see like these very stud and dud type lineups. And so personally, my immediate thought is, if you look at the GPP scores from 9,000 or from 8,900 up to 10,800, all of these guys have positive GPP scores. Henley, Tommy, Lowry, Hideki, Cantlay, Koepka, Rahm, Morikawa, Schauffele, Oberg. That's an awful lot of talent that is going underowned simply because people are going to different types of teams. So I am very interested in kind of loading up on that range almost as much as possible and having a more balanced lineup where hopefully these guys who are quite capable down in the $5,000 and $6,000 range just don't have the type of ceiling performance that I can find from somebody in the 6,000s or the 7,000s or the 8,000s.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird week when it comes to all of that. I mean, a lot of these guys. So do we end up with a low-owned Dustin Johnson because of where he's priced? That everybody goes, way below him and then pays up.
When you asked me if there was anyone else who stood out just because of their driving, and I said I was on a couple live guys, DJ was actually the second one. We haven't projected at 2.7% in single entries. A very solid GPP score. He is definitely, I think, the hardest guy to actually project because I have no idea what the most likely outcome is for him, what the median outcome is for him. I know what the downside is. The downside is he just stinks and misses the cut. But I also know the upside is he drives the ball extremely well, makes a bunch of putts, is dialed with the irons, and finds himself in contention. And you can't say that about a ton of guys at $7,600. I think like the best way for me to put it is this. If I told you with 100% certainty that every single player under $8,000 and every single guy priced 100 to 1 or higher in the outright market had their A game, and let's not even say their A plus game, just their A game. Let's say like the 90th percentile outcome for the week that they could possibly have. Which guy would you want?
Yeah.
It's not even close. Dustin Johnson's A game is significantly better than anybody else's in this range. So,
and anybody that doesn't listen to the show, like we talk about this a lot, right? Is there's certain people, you and I are a prime example. Like if you are playing, you have your A plus game and I have mine, you are going to beat me because you can do stuff that I can't do. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that it's day in and day out. But the point is his A game is as good as anybody's in the world, period. Like, and he's proven that.
And look, let's be clear. Like he hasn't had his A game in quite a while. His two best finishes this year are 5th place and a 7th place on live, both of which he drove the ball really well and made putts. It's like there's definitely a major championship recipe in those outcomes, one of which he was really good with his irons as well. So we'll love to see that. I think for me, like my expectation for DJ coming into the season was that he was going to continue to do next to nothing on live, but he might show up for the majors. So the fact that he's actually shown some life in these live tournaments makes me that much more confident that he can actually do so in the major championships. Quail Hollow is a phenomenal golf course for his skill set, long and accurate off the tee. Like we're kind of almost numb to it at this point, but we have some of the absolute best drivers of all time in the last 10 years or so. DJ, Rahm, Scotty, Rory, of course, Bryson. Like these guys are as good as anybody in the history of the game off the tee. And while we haven't totally seen that of late from DJ, we know it's still there. And we are seeing him drive the ball well on live too. So I know he was battling an injury of some kind early in the season. It seems like he's getting healthier. The speed is there. Gained 20 yards per drive in the Masters. So that was great to see from a health perspective. I think he's ready to find himself in contention again. And then, of course, he goes back to Oakmont where he's won a U.S. Open.
If he believes that he has a chance to play in the Ryder Cup team too, like we talked about, like if he knows that, hey, I have a perfect setup if I want to play – I don't know if he's smart enough to know this, but if he's smart enough to be like, hey, if I go play really good in these majors, like I can play in the Ryder Cup this year, and that means something to him, I think we might see the DJ of old.
Exactly, and it should matter to him because I think there's a very good chance that he looks at the lineup of courses this year: Quail Hollow, then Oakmont, and then Bethpage Black, and he says, "You know what? This might be my last hurrah." We know he doesn't really care about golf anymore. Give it one more great effort. We're seeing like the fact that he finished 5th and 7th period on live tells me he's focused a little bit more. He's practicing a little bit more than he did in the last few years, where his best finish last year on live, he had 1 7th place finish, and then second best was 13th. Like, yeah, the guy just doesn't care. He's skating through his live career, but he's shown up twice prior to major championships here already this year. So I think there's a very real chance that we see something from DJ, and it's very rare in DFS that you can spend less than $8,000 and get this much upside at under 5% ownership. I will not be passing on this in the $4,000 Millie Maker. got myself a ticket, and I'll be using DJ in the lineup. It's either first place or last place. I don't care which.
Do you have a thought to stay in the live, guys? Do you have a thought on Patrick Reed this week? I know he's played well here. He obviously has a great short game. If it does end up a short game contest with the firmer, faster greens, do you have any interest there?
So I was 100% prepared to play Patrick Reed this week if he was low owned, because the thought there is, hey, if everyone just wants distance, there's a very good chance they pass up on Patrick Reed. But it doesn't seem like people are passing up on Patrick Reed. It looks like he's going to be one of the more popular $8,000 players. Connors, Reed, Straka, Berger is going to be a very, very popular pocket. Whether that is, the third guy in, the fourth guy in, or maybe in some cases even like the second guy in. I think you could do lineups like one of the big three, and then maybe two, even three of these like 8K guys, and then you go cheap with the last two. So these four are going to be in a wide variety of lineups, but they're all going to be popular. And so for me, I think I'll be passing on Reed, but the talent is there, and the course fit is better than you would think given the lack of length, just because, as you said, how good he is around the greens.
And then obviously we have to talk about Min-Woo Lee here, right? I mean, this is everything that we know and love about Min-Woo is his driver in the short game. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be too high owned for you to play?
I don't think he's going to be that popular. I think the bigger problem for me is that as well as he was driving it all of last year and at the start of this year, it has fallen off the table a little bit. He was very good at the Truist, so that's good, but his issue has been the big miss, right? And so, again, like we don't always care about how many fairways somebody, as long as Min-Woo hits, because he's going to miss more fairways than most, and he could still be very accurate if he's managing those misses. The problem is he hasn't managed the misses. He lost a bunch at the API off the tee. He lost at the Players. He lost at the Houston Open, and then barely gained at the Masters and the RBC Heritage. The Masters, I think part of that is like we would expect him to gain at the Masters because you can't really miss huge at Augusta off the tee. So the fact that he hasn't been sharp off the tee definitely gives me pause. Also hasn't been putting well, and the short game hasn't been sharp either. So he was playing incredible golf, but then Masters, Heritage, Truist has all been very, very below the kind of new standard that he had set for himself. So I think I'm out on Min-Woo, but it's certainly not going to surprise me if the talent shows up again.
So the other side of that for me is I think that like eye lines matter, golf courses matter. Mm-hmm. This place to me off the tee seems like it should fit him better than some of those other places. I mean, you would expect him to lose off the tee at like the RBC, right? Like that doesn't surprise me at all. At the API, that doesn't surprise me at all that he lost off the tee.
It definitely surprised me at the API. The API should fit his game.
Yeah, but he hit a ton of irons. So like it's not. Yeah. I mean, I just think here you get the better feel for him. Mm-hmm. And especially if it's rough, it might be long but for him, it's not going to be that penal. Like he's not going to be afraid to just let it go.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about a group of kind of favorites of ours here at FTN in the $7,000 and $6,000 range. Davis Thompson, Benny On, Keegan Bradley. What are your thoughts on those guys? All have slightly positive GPP scores. I like them all. They all project well. I think Davis Thompson might be the one I'm struggling with the most because I just didn't like what I saw from him mentally at Augusta and at other times this season when he's gotten himself in contention. What are your thoughts on Davis Thompson?
I mean, he's obviously got the talent. He's going to break out. I'm not there on him yet. I mean, we might as well throw Keith Mitchell into this conversation, right?
We will, but it's a slightly different conversation. So,
but yeah, Davis Thompson's super talented, and I think he will figure it out. I think the more times he puts himself in contention, the faster he'll get there. He's young. I don't think his GPP score, from what I've seen so far, is going to be good enough for me to play. But if it got there, I wouldn't be afraid of him either, because I do think he has the talent to compete and the talent to win a major. I think he will win a major at some point.
It seems like every aspect of the game is there. He's even made putts recently, like at Philly Cricket. The approach play has been great at times this season. Off the tee has been great at times this season, actually for most of the season, and his short game is definitely solid. So I'm with you on Davis Thompson. I just don't know if he's ready to do the exact same thing in a major. I am very much in on Keegan this week. I think he's significantly underpriced at $7,200, playing really good golf. He's got the volatility that we like. I like almost everything that I'm seeing from Keegan. Also showed, flashes last week of the truest, getting himself back in contention. All this guy needs to do is make putts. Hasn't been happening lately, but as we talk about like an emphasis on long-term form instead of recent form for Keegan, for most of his career, he hasn't been a good putter, but in the last 2 years, that's changed. So I think there's a chance that he makes more putts this week. And if he does, tee to green, he's been so good all season.
And he fits the bill here, right? I mean, this is kind of, and we know he can win. We know he's still competing, right? I'm a big fan of Keegan this week as well. I don't know how I'm going to make him fit, but I'm going to find a way to get him in some form or fashion.
I think part of that, by the way, is he's slightly underrated off the tee, and I think he's very underrated around the green. So underrated in the two areas of the course fit model that are shining this week means I'm going to be pretty interested at just $7,200. Let's talk Keith Mitchell, because this is going to be a very difficult decision. At $6,200, he is probably the most mispriced player in the field, and the field is not going to miss that. He is projected currently at 17.6% single entry ownership. In the $4,000 milli, I think you could get as high as like 30 to 40% at this ownership or at this price. I'm struggling here because I do think that you can't get the expectation or the ceiling that Keith has from anybody else this cheap. But I also think that there is a chance that, he misses some putts early, gets emotionally frustrated, and ends up missing the cut at a massive ownership number. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet with Keith Mitchell. What are your thoughts here? Can he get too popular for you?
Man, it would be really hard for him to get to a point where I wouldn't play him, because I think he's in a better mindset as a person, as a player, as everything. I think his mind might be a little bit better than what it has been. He also knows he's playing well. And I would bet if you had a personal conversation and could talk about it, he would tell you that he believes he has a chance to win this week.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so too. It's interesting because we talk like, hey, Davis Thompson got himself into contention a few times and then just kind of ruined it immediately, and how that makes me hesitant to then play him in the pressure of a major. But I almost think Keith has done it so many times in the last 2 years, get himself into contention, not come through, that he's already playing under a level of pressure that makes a PGA Championship no different to him, right? And he's put so much pressure on himself to get this done. The fact that time and time again he's getting himself into contention speaks volumes about, number one, the talent, but also there's a level of resilience to that. It's not dissimilar to Rory and finally getting it done, where by simply getting himself into that position again and again, knowing how stressful that situation is for him does speak volumes about his resilience. And I think he will eventually come through. But I also think that maybe the more important point is if he gets himself into contention, shits the bed on Sunday again, and finishes 12th place, 18th place, guess what? At $6,200, that's going to be a very good DraftKings outcome for you. So all he has to do is the same thing that he's been doing. He doesn't even need to actually come through when in contention.
And we talk about this a lot too on DraftKings. He could finish 45th, but his firepower to make a bunch of birdies might still have him as the 20th best player on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. So
if you're fading him, you need the fade to be with the expectation, not the expectation, but the hope that you see something like the Players' Championship outcome, where he lost 1.8 strokes per round putting. That was too much to overcome with his tee to green game, and he missed the cut. That's what you need. You need a miscut. You need a dead last finish making the cut for this fade to pay off because when you pivot away from him, like in your mind, if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he only finishes 30th, that might be like a somewhat disappointing outcome for Keith at $6,200. But anybody you're pivoting to, that would be a great outcome. He's that much better, I think, than the rest of the guys in this price range, with the exception of going up to $6,600. Like I think Novak and Mitchell, for me, project very similarly. I have similar expectations for their ability to get it done under pressure. So if you're pivoting off Keith to somebody in the same price range or even cheaper, like maybe Matt McCarty, Kitayama, Nick Taylor, Kevin Yu, like all of these guys, you're thrilled with a made cut and a 30th place finish. It is a big step down, I think, to go from Mitchell to one of those guys. So one thing I will say, like this is another reason why I'm leaning towards a balanced build, because if I fade Keith, I don't want to pivot. I want to go to a different price range where Andrew Novak becomes my cheapest player.
Yeah, which that's, completely understandable there too. Like, I mean, the only other guys that, besides Novak up there, I mean, I like both of the Hogarths again this week. Mm-hmm. I still think that they're underperforming via the eye test, right? I think they're better than what everything is showing data-wise.
Rasmus is really hard to project because he's been very consistently good for about a year now, except he lost 6 strokes per round at the Genesis, 4 per round at the Players, and then 5 per round at the Valspar. It's not like those 3 missed cuts. Usually if you have just 3 missed cuts in the midst of a long stretch of solid play, that's going to do very little to your data. But when you lose that many strokes in that short amount of time, yeah, it's going to tank your data. So I agree. I think he's a better player than his projections, but you also better be aware of just how bad it can get.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the bottom line though is if you're looking for a takedown of any sort, and you can get a guy that, if he finished 15th at that price, like I wouldn't be surprised. And once again, we're at the firepower range. If he did finish 30th or I think he finished 20th last week or something, like he could still break into the top 12 in DraftKings points because of the firepower that he has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely agree. All right. Let's talk outrights. I've got a couple. I hit DJ at 150 to 1. That is no longer available. But let's see, what is the number now for Dustin Johnson? Because I think I might still be in on it, even though 150 is no longer there. 125 to 1 is the best pure outright. You can get 110 to 1 with an each way. What do you think with DJ at that number?
I mean, once again, it just goes straight into what we're talking about, right? As far as his upside, if he's really cares and the course fit is so good, like, yeah, I don't know. Like you have to play him at that number, don't you? Like it has to be within reason. But let's be honest, you're going to play him the last 3 majors. He's going to, like, if they keep hanging, unless he wins one,
yeah,
we're going to play him and hope that we get lucky and he wins one of these 3. Or at least I am.
If he doesn't show up here or at Oakmont, I won't play him for the Open Championship. But the point is the same, right?
Yeah.
We know the upside. We're kind of almost projecting this like return to form for him because of the fit and the fact that it like might be the last year that he really cares to care. But man, the other outright, Keegan Bradley. 125 to 1 for him is a massive mistake in the odds. Still available at 110 to 1 for the each way for him. This is as bad a number as I can remember seeing anyone post. We have him at 1.8% to win. This is insane value. And we know like all it takes for him to actually get himself into contention is to just make some putts. So I couldn't have run to this number any faster than I did.
Min Woo Lee 97 to 1 was one of mine. Obviously, I don't know what you have them at. Our numbers can vary some, so I don't know.
Let's see.
And then Patrick Reed at 75-1 was another one that I thought was too high of a guy that can win here.
90 is the best available for me on Minwoo, so I don't hate that. And then Patrick Reed, let's see, where is he available? 90-1 for Patrick Reed, available on DraftKings, 80 on FanDuel, and then a big drop to 66 if you want an each way on it. Where do we have Reed's win probability? Certainly another one who's a little bit tough to project here. We've got him at 0.7%, but his expected strokes gain number is actually slightly better than that. It's just that he also has been a low volatility guy in the major championships. But again, like that's a really hard thing to project because we have such limited data on him. We did just see like a third place in the Masters, so we know that he can come up with the upside to actually win. I think the hardest thing for him in terms of winning is the fact that he's shorter than most on a golf course that very much rewards distance. And it's not like he's making up for that lack of distance with his accuracy off the tee. He's really going to have to grind it out and have a better than usual driving week.
And then one more guy that obviously everybody knows that we play all the time is Siwoo in the hundreds for you as well. I got him exactly 100-1. Like that's just too high for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Novak? I want to see this. Siwoo's a similar thing for me. Like I'm not going to get to Siwoo in the outright market just because he's one of the least volatile players on tour. Very surprising, right? Like earlier in his career, he was the picture of volatility. He has very much become the opposite of that. Actually has one of the lowest volatilities in our database. Only
but if you watched him, you would not
Berger
think that.
And Mav McNeely are lower. Actually, Neiman's even a little bit higher. So it's only Berger is tied and Maverick McNeely is lower. That's it. JJ Spawn's lower.
If you watched him play, you would never think that he was. I mean, like if you just watch a round of golf and watch the way he plays, you would never think. And it's. I think this is one of those deals. His score might be low volatile, not very volatile, but the way he gets there may be very different ways. So. Yeah, I'll take my chances there.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point, and essentially what you're saying there is like if one week he's great off the tee, and the next he's great with his approach, and the next he's great with his putter, and they all come out to the same outcome. Statistically, he's going to be low volatility, but if any one of those skill sets can spike in a given week, then the outcome where they all spike together or they all stink together is there, and so he's more volatile than the numbers suggest. I think that's definitely true to a degree, but when you look at him this year, like I think that might have been more true last year. When you look at him this year, the profile has been very similar. He's losing a very similar amount week to week on the greens. He's gaining a similar amount week to week with his approach play. The irons have really been the only skill set that spikes because he's also gaining a similar amount off the tee. So the volatility this year has mostly just been how are the irons? And he does well when the irons are good. He does poorly when the irons aren't because the rest of his game is pretty much consistent.
Yeah, I just like I said, this is more of the eye test, and the number is so high.
I am about to add one more outright. Andrew Novak. Let me ask you this. He's 190-1 on DraftKings. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer 150-1 on Bet365 where I can get the each way? I think I want the each way at 150.
I would probably split my units. If that were one of my plays, I would probably split it between the two because I do believe, and part of the reason that you talked about him is that you think that he has the stones to win, right? That's the biggest deal. So if you know that he has those stones, is it going to bother you that you went all the way, on just the each way instead of having that extra, because you got to look at the way that I look at it is the number is high enough at 40. You're basically your difference is 40-1. That number is high enough that like if you hit a 40-1 winner, you would be happy, right? You're pleased with that 40-1 winner. So,
but I'm also very pleased if I hit 150-1.
Well, I'm just saying if you look at it as two separate bets, right? Like now, if it was, you're probably not playing too many 20-1s or 15-1s in this case. So therefore, I would obviously take the each way. But at a 40-1 difference, I might lean into the 190.
So I'm looking at it now. Like if I go $50 on the each way for a total of $100 and that hits, it's 9,100 returned. I'm going to be pretty pleased with that. So I think I'm just going to do that and not split because, again, 150 to 1 is huge. And while, yes, I am saying if Novak gets himself into contention, I do believe he can win. I really like this bet primarily just because of how good I think Novak is. So having 1/5 payout for 8 places, like that's really solid too at 150. So that's going to be my third outright. I think that's going to be it for me. Just DJ, Keegan, and Novak, all 3 guys over 100 to 1. Very different strategy than what most of the industry is doing here with Scotty, Rory, Bryson up top. And I think the way that I would explain that is when 3 players are combining for this much win equity, it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that a guy who's like 20 to 1 but should be 15 to 1 actually exists, right? It's so much harder for the books to make a mistake on somebody in that range when so much win equity is at the top. It's much easier for them to price somebody at 125 who should be 90 or price a guy at 150 who should be 100. So that's why I am looking way down the board for guys instead of in that range that has treated me well in the past, not necessarily in major championships, but a lot of my outrights in the last couple of years have come from like 40 to 70, something in that range. And I've kind of had to skip that range a lot this year because of how good Scotty and Rory are, but especially this week when it's a 3-headed monster at the top, Scotty, Rory, and Bryson.
And also to go with that, most of these really good players also have these dates circled on their calendar of like, hey, I want to be in top form for these. And therefore, like you're generally, not only are you playing against the best player, but you're getting them at their best a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. All right, let's see. Let's talk a little bit one and done. We are just about dead already in the one and done. Week after week, we say, all right, we need a contrarian win here. We get nothing, but it's not over yet. Do you have any thoughts here on one and done?
Oh, man. We need another contrarian win, right? I mean, that's all there is to it.
Certainly.
How contrarian? I mean, I think Cantlay is probably going to be the most popular, right? In that middle range.
I remember because major championships, people will go to live guys. They know the strategy. It's not shocking. I think Bryson will probably be the most popular for anybody who didn't use him at the Masters. I think he will be the top choice. I think Rahm will be fairly popular in one and done, even though he's not going to be popular on DraftKings because, again, there's a much more limited selection that people are choosing from live guys. I think I want to use Dustin Johnson, as crazy as that is.
I mean, I don't hate it. I would be at this point maybe more inclined to use like Oberg, but that's just because we know he can win, and if he's super low owned, he's shown more than DJ has now as much. And this, like I love DJ this week. Like I'm a very, very big fan. I'm just thinking of a guy that might get overlooked this week that has the skill set to win.
Here's my counter to that. We have Oberg about 10 percentage points more likely to make the cut than DJ. We have Oberg at 1.2% to win, DJ at 1.1% to win. So you're getting like a minuscule amount of added win equity if you go from DJ to Oberg. But we're getting significantly less ownership. And we also then save Oberg for another event where we could use him later in the year if we don't use him here. So I think DJ's the better play. I'd be more inclined to deviate with like a Rahm or Neiman or somebody in like the Lowry, Fleetwood, Henley range where you're getting more win equity and you're doing so on a PGA Tour guy who people are going to be less inclined to use this week, and they're not quite at the stud level where we're going to hate not having them later in the year.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I just honestly, like, I kind of want to see something out of DJ and use him at the U.S. Open. But
that's fair. The counter to that is let's say he finishes 5th this week.
Yeah,
he's going to be a fairly popular pick at
yeah. And that's literally, that's where I would like. But yeah, I mean, I'm good with it this week. We always talk about being ahead of the game, and that I think that if we're both pretty high on a guy, and to be out in front, my like I said, my initial thought was let's save him for U.S. Open, but I can definitely get behind here and trying to be out in front, because you're right. Let's say we do see the old DJ and he finishes, whatever, 8th. Yeah. And then we're like, oh shit.
So this is fairly interesting. Only 8% of people used Bryson at Augusta. 26% used Rahm. I definitely think that reverses this week. I think Bryson will be far and away the most popular one and done selection. I think Rahm will probably still be second most popular. Only 32% of people have used Xander to this point in the season. And that's because he hasn't been playing as well as some of the other elite players. We still have Xander available. I think that could end up being a really sharp play if he shows up this week and wins.
And I like him here too. Like, I think if he gets overlooked, and I like him. I think that this course is better for him than maybe a lot of the industry thinks.
And so essentially what we're seeing is the fact that only 32% of people have used him so far is that people don't want to play him before they see something really, really good from him, before they see the type of form that he showed last year. So that makes me think he won't be that popular this week. And then you get the added effect of people want to play live guys to conserve their PGA Tour guys. Xander being like the most valuable PGA Tour guy that most people have remaining, since well over 50% of the field has already used Scotty and Rory. And over 70% of people have already used JT. 66% have already used Colin Morikawa. 67% have already used Oberg. So like the vast majority of people feel like they need to still save Xander. So I think he'll be really low owned this week in one and done. And I think it sounds like he might be our guy.
Yeah, I'm good with him or DJ. I think we'll go back. I think I'm still leaning DJ at this point, just because I think just basically the way we talk about him, and both of us are in on the same guy, and knowing that he has a chance to win it. Like, I mean, there's a chance that like nobody else takes him, right? Or very few, less than 10 people in the whole contest take him. Well,
I can guarantee you this. I'm either using Xander or DJ in my personal entry, and it's going to be the opposite of what we do in the Pro V Pro joint entry. So it doesn't matter to me which one is which. I feel both are really, really sharp. I will give you the final say there on that one.
Well, let's roll with DJ.
All right.
And then you can use Xander in your other.
Perfect. All right. Anything else here that we haven't touched on that you think is worth touching on?
No, I think that once again, I just hope the golf course holds up, and we'll know more. I think day one, first 9 holes, we're going to kind of see what we're going to get, unless they bake the greens out, which I don't know. They're new greens, so they want to risk losing them or not. That's not.
So one of the things that I mentioned in my hot takes, and I mentioned it earlier on the show as well, is I do think that there's potentially an advantage to finding the guys who are good off the tee, but they're good more through accuracy than distance, just because the whole field is in on distance and they don't have our strokes gained accuracy metric. So if you can find guys who are accurate off the tee, not long, and good with short game, you're probably going to find some guys who are under-owned. And you see that in a trio, Henley, Lowry, Fleetwood, in the GPP scores, $8,900 to $9,200. All three of these guys are within that range. All three of them looking really, really solid to me. Two-part question here. The first is, are you interested in this group? And the second part is, do you think there's any advantage to skill set stacking a group like this, and just hoping that for some reason the change in the setup, whether it is the overseed rough or overseed fairways, maybe it's the softness of the fairways in the rain, that we don't see the usual emphasis on distance that we typically see at Quail Hollow, but we do see an emphasis on accuracy, where maybe you end up not just getting guys on their own because of how good they are, but also because the course fit changes in their favor a little bit.
I'm going to have a hard time doing that because of the way that I think about stuff and the way that I approach. I'm going to want the most talented guys. So where that skill set lands, I think doesn't really matter to me, right? So I think if there's one guy that is playing really well that may hit it straighter than the others, and there's another guy that is, hits it longer than everybody, but I think that his form, matters too much. I think that's the way I'm going to lean this week, because I like, especially in the majors, and especially if the greens get firm, that the most talented players are going to win.
I do think it's worth thinking a little bit about this, just because these guys are so incredibly similar in their skill sets. Let me see if I can make this large enough to share with you guys. I think I can. Yeah. All right, let me do this. These guys are insanely similar in their skill sets. Can you see the screen?
No.
Uh-uh. Oh, I just have to click it there. Okay. So here they are at the top of the board. I mean, look how similar this is. They all three lose in distance. They all gain between 0.33 and 0.42 their accuracy. They're all gaining almost exactly half a stroke per round with their approach, and almost exactly 0.2 per round with their around the green play. Like, you don't see skill sets this similar very often. They're all in the same price range. They're all under-owned. They all have good GPP scores. So I think right now, one of the decisions that I'm still kind of wrestling with is, do I want to play just one of them, or do I get this like added correlation bonus if I play all three together because of how similar they are? And again, like, maybe the course fit is slightly wrong, and for some reason distance doesn't matter as much as we all expect it to matter. They're under-owned regardless. So even if distance does matter a ton, it's not like playing the three of them together is going to hurt me. They all still have a better chance of success than their ownerships and price.
But you're talking about three talented players here. Yeah. Like, these are three guys. Like, I don't mind that at all. Like, if you're going to skill set in that way, like that's fine. But you're talking about three guys that we know can win, that we know are going to compete, that we know are in decent form. Like that, I could get behind that, but I'm not going to go to a guy that just, I don't think is as talented, but might have a better skill set in one side or the other.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and that's not really what I was asking. I mean, what I'm asking is, like, when you have guys who we know are talented enough that they're under-owned, even though they're not long, can you get this added correlation benefit of playing them together? And I think the answer is probably yes. But I don't think it's that strong of an effect, primarily because I don't think it's likely that distance is less predictive than we expect this week. Quail Hollow and PGA Championships alike really emphasize distance, and more often than not, soft fairways make the course play longer, and therefore distance does, if anything, matter even slightly more. So I think that my answer will be I play all of Lowry, Fleetwood, Henley together, or I don't play them at all, and that might depend on what their ownerships do, right? If they all steam up a little bit and their GPP scores are no longer like clearly the best under $10,000, then I probably don't play. But if they reverse steam, if everyone decides they're going to play Neiman, Cantlay, Minwoo Lee, Corey Connors, Patrick Reed, Straka, and Berger instead of those guys, and their GPP scores get even better, then there's a good chance that I will play all three of them. A Rahm, Lowry, Fleetwood, Henley start. I don't know if that's doable, but that sounds pretty darn appealing to me. I don't know how cheap you'd have to go with those last two, but that's going to be something I explore. A lot of really fun ideas this week. Justin, appreciate you joining me, and we will be back next week. Thanks for tuning in.